Scott MacFarlane joins me here at the table. Scott, talk to us about this matter dealing with FBI agents, the request for their names, a lawsuit filed. What are the stakes?
Two different lawsuits by two different groups of FBI employees and agents, all of whom have asked for anonymity, and we'll explain why in a moment.
Sure.
They're arguing that this list that was compiled by the FBI leadership and handed over as required to the Department of Justice's interim leadership today is a violation of their privacy. It's a violation of their rights. What's more, they say it's a national security threat. Should the information fall into the wrong hands, the national security of the U.S. would be severely compromised. They're also arguing, Major, that they themselves are going to be compromised if somehow this list of agents and employees who worked on the January 6th cases gets out there to the January 6th sympathizers and rioters. There have already been a menacing of FBI agents, those who are known, those who testified in open court. If you open it up to the 5,000 or so who are estimated to be on this list, you're opening up far more people and their families to potential threats. And all of this feels particularly poignant at this moment, where you're coming 2 weeks off the pardons and you have a galvanized group of Americans who think those January 6 rioters were righteous and the FBI, even though nobody has questioned their work on these cases, was wrong.
If I understand this, Scott, we're talking about, in many cases, field agents who are assigned to cases. That's an assignment process that they don't have a lot of wiggle room within. They can't say, no, boss, I'd really rather not do that, and retain their job in good standing with the FBI. That's one issue. They're assigned to do the work, they do the work. They're now possibly being identified and now fear that they could be menaced by fellow Americans. The sort of cancer about January 6th is now going to a completely different level.
It's metastasized. I think it's clear. I think this is happening in a way that even some people inside the Bureau didn't expect, that there would be a naming of names or a listing of identities. Our best reporting at this moment is that the list that was provided to the Department of Justice is acting leadership, Trump-aligned acting leadership. You'll recall the person who ordered this at the Department of Justice is Trump's old defense lawyer from Manhattan. There's a concern here that the list that was provided will identify the employees, even if the names aren't specifically included. There's employee ID numbers, where you worked, when you last worked on a January 6th case. Could be easy for anybody who wants to at the Department of Justice to figure out exactly who is who on this list. May make it more difficult to leak, but not impossible.
And is there some fear or apprehension that these FBI agents or the unions that represent them have that these jobs could, in some later iteration of this, be in jeopardy? Meaning, it's not just about their identities, it's about they could lose their jobs through no fault of their own.
That's where we thought this was headed. There's concern articulated in the lawsuits that they think there's going to be a wave of forced retirements, resignations, or firings. The FBI agents who've sued predicted it. And in the letter that mandated the FBI do this from the Department of Justice, they said one of the reasons they want these names is for potential future employment actions, which is a wonderful way of saying possible firings, forced resignations. We thought the lawsuits were going to head in that direction, but what they seem to argue most vociferously is we think there's a safety issue here for these men and women, that their lives are in jeopardy.
And just to reiterate, Scott, not only did they not have discretion, they had to take the assignments given, they do other things than these cases. They do other work, which could also be jeopardized if they're suddenly run out of the FBI.
A lot of the agents who are detailed to this are on joint terrorism task forces. Perhaps they were well situated for this type of work. If you start gutting FBI agents out of field offices, you are gutting terror task forces, child trafficking units, gun units, violent crime units. But also, if you're sending a message here, I think the concern for the people I spoke to today who are in the thick of this is you have sent a message whether there's firings or not. Be careful what cases you take. Don't take up cases that displease Trump. That is a chilling effect that could resonate for quite some time.
And this also strikes me, Scott, as different than the campaign rhetoric. The campaign rhetoric was there's something wrong at the top of the FBI. Most FBI agents are fine. This action suggests this Justice Department, newly constituted under President Trump, doesn't actually believe that.
I think this is larger in scope than the scrutiny the FBI was expecting over January 6th.
Or that the campaign rhetoric suggested.
And same with the pardons. There was more pardons than people thought the campaign rhetoric suggested. This is a whole of FBI concern because this is every field office across America, nearly every state in America.
Scott MacFarlane, thank you very much, sir. I appreciate it.